a homeless ex-con named Daryl Knox sprinted toward a burning car, while others screamed and ran the other way. Inside, a trapped toddler. Moments later, the car exploded behind him. But that wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. 3 weeks later, the mayor knocked on Daryl's tent. This is the story of how a man society threw away became a city's quiet hero. Before we dive in, if powerful stories like this move you, consider subscribing. Your support helps us keep unfolding stories that matter. Daryl Knox wasn't born broken. He had dreams once, a little house, a steady job, maybe a family of his own. He grew up in a tough part of the city, the kind where even the streetlights gave up early. But he kept his head down, stayed out of trouble, until trouble found him. One night, a friend knocked on his door with a plan, a promise, and a lie. Daryl said yes. He thought it was just a quick job. A few minutes, easy money. No one gets hurt. But the lie turned into sirens, and the promise turned into 12 years in prison. They called it armed robbery. He said he never touched the weapon. But the judge didn't care. His record was enough. And once the door slammed shut behind him, the world moved on. When he got out, there were no welcome signs, no fresh start, just cold shoulders and closed doors. No one wanted to hire a felon. No one wanted to rent to one either. Even the friends who once swore they'd ride with him vanished into silence. So he drifted. From shelters to sidewalks, from job applications to rejection letters, until all he had left was a tent, a thin sleeping bag, and a notebook he kept folded in his coat pocket. Inside, he wrote one sentence every night, one thing to be grateful for: a dry night, a warm cup of coffee, a kind word from a stranger. Daryl never asked for pity. He didn't shout. He didn't beg. He just existed, quiet, careful, and alone. To most people, he was just another ex-con under the bridge, someone to avoid, someone to forget. But all of that would change. In one breathless moment, on a day no one would ever forget. It happened on a Tuesday. The sky was clear, the air thick with summer heat. Daryl had spent the morning collecting scrap metal and bottles, trading them in for a few dollars and a sandwich wrapped in wax paper. He was sitting near the back of a grocery store parking lot, resting in the shade, when the scream cut through the air. At first, he thought it was just another argument. But then he saw the smoke, thick, black, and rising fast. A car had crashed near the curb. Flames licked the front hood. The driver's door was open. A woman was outside screaming, her voice raw, panicked, desperate. "My baby! She's still inside!" People backed away. Some ran. Others reached for their phones, recording from a distance. But Daryl didn't move away. He moved forward. He ran, faster than he had in years. The heat hit him like a wall. He didn't have a plan, just instinct. He grabbed a rock, shattered the back window, and crawled halfway into the smoke. The heat scorched his hands. His lungs burned. But he kept reaching until his fingers found something soft, a child's leg, a toddler, maybe 2 years old, still breathing, still crying. He pulled her close, wrapped his body around hers, and stumbled back, just as the fire jumped. Moments later, the engine blew. Glass and flame erupted behind him. The crowd gasped, and for a second, everything was quiet. The child was alive. Her mother dropped to her knees, sobbing. Daryl handed her over without a word. His hands were blistered, his shirt singed. And before anyone could stop him, he walked away. No name, no story, no camera in his face. Just a man who saved a life and disappeared into the background. For 3 days, his name didn't appear in any headlines. The videos spread, shaky cell phone clips of a man pulling a toddler from a burning car, the flames exploding behind him, the crowd screaming. The footage went viral. Homeless hero, mystery man saves child. But no one knew who he was. Daryl watched it happen from a distance. He didn't have a phone, no internet, no social media. Just a soup kitchen radio playing the news as people whispered and wondered. "That guy looked like someone from around here," one man said. "Couldn't be Daryl," someone else replied. "He's just, Daryl." But Daryl stayed quiet. He didn't want the spotlight. He didn't want reporters. He didn't want to be found by people who only remembered his prison number. At night, he lay in his tent, hand wrapped in bandages from the burn, staring up at the thin nylon roof above him. The city kept moving. The world kept turning. And just like always, it felt like no one really saw him. Except now, every once in a while, they did. A woman at the shelter pressed an extra sandwich into his hands and whispered, "If that was you, thank you." A little boy on a bike stopped and stared. "You're the fire guy," he said. Daryl just smiled. "No, I'm just passing through." But something inside him had shifted. He still kept his notebook, still wrote one line each night. But now, those lines were different. "The child is alive. I did something that mattered. Maybe I'm more than what they say I am." And somewhere, quietly, the city began to ask the same question. Who was the man who risked his life and vanished? It was early morning. Fog hung low over the city, and the ground was still wet from rain the night before. Daryl sat outside his tent, wrapping his fingers around a styrofoam cup of coffee, steam rising into the cold air. He heard footsteps. Not hurried, not nervous, deliberate. Then a voice. "Daryl Knox?" He looked up. 3 people stood in front of him. 2 wore suits, 1 held a camera, and in the middle was the mayor of the city. Daryl stood slowly, unsure whether to run or apologize. But the mayor smiled. "I've been looking for you," he said. "You saved a child's life. This city owes you more than thanks." Daryl blinked. "I didn't do it for attention." "I know," the mayor replied. "That's why it matters." That afternoon, Daryl stood inside City Hall for the first time in his life. The toddler's mother was there, tears in her eyes, holding her daughter close. City workers lined the hallway. Cameras flashed. Reporters asked questions, but Daryl barely heard them. The mayor handed him a plaque and said, "Today, we recognize not just a heroic act, but a man who reminded us what courage really looks like." People clapped. Some cried, and for the first time in years, Daryl didn't feel like a ghost. After the ceremony, the mayor pulled him aside. "We want to help, not just with words." He offered Daryl a place to stay, a real apartment, rent covered for the first 6 months. And a job. City maintenance, nothing fancy, just honest work, steady pay. Daryl nodded, eyes wet. He had spent years watching the city look away. But today, it had looked right at him and seen the truth. The apartment was small, 1 bedroom, peeling paint, a leaky faucet in the kitchen. But to Daryl, it felt like a palace. No traffic noise, no dripping tent, no fear of someone stealing his shoes while he slept. He hung his coat by the door, laid his notebook on the windowsill, and for the first time in years, he turned the lock behind him and felt safe. Work came next. City maintenance wasn't glamorous, hauling trash, trimming trees, fixing broken benches. But it was honest. And it was his. He showed up early, stayed late, never complained. People noticed. Not because he asked them to, but because something about him was different. Steady, quiet, grateful. One afternoon, a young worker on his team pulled him aside. "You're the guy, right? The one from the fire?" Daryl smiled, just a little. "I'm the guy with the shovel today." The story never left him. But he didn't wear it like a badge. He let his actions speak louder than any headline ever could. He started saving. Not much, but enough. Donated to the shelter where he used to eat. Bought blankets for the men still sleeping under bridges. Left groceries on doorsteps without a name. And slowly, people stopped calling him the ex-con. They called him Daryl. Just Daryl. His sister reached out after seeing him on the news. They met for coffee, talked for hours. He met his niece for the first time. She gave him a drawing of the fire truck that saved the baby. Daryl didn't correct her. He just folded the paper and put it in his notebook. It was late spring when Daryl found himself back in that same grocery store parking lot. Not scavenging this time, just walking home from work with a bag of groceries in one hand and his old coat slung over his shoulder. The car was gone, of course. The burned-out wreck had long been towed away. But the memory still lived there, in the cracks of the pavement, in the way the light hit the edge of the curb. He paused, not to relive the fire, but to feel something else. Peace. Across the street, a woman stepped out of a minivan, holding a toddler on her hip. The same little girl. Her hair was longer now, her laugh brighter. She looked at him, smiled, waved. Daryl raised a hand in return. No cameras, no crowds. Just a quiet moment between a man and a life he had saved. He went home, made dinner, sat by the window with his notebook. Tonight's line was simple: I made it. Because in the end, Daryl Knox didn't just pull a child from the fire. He pulled himself out too. Daryl's story is a reminder that no one is too far gone. That even when the world turns its back, a single moment of courage can open a new path. What would you have done in his place? Let us know in the comments. And if stories of redemption and resilience speak to you, don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories. Right here on Stories Unfolded.